Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be following a tutorial which I have linked down below, and this is part of the Code With Me series where we're taking different tutorials together and learning different parts of code. As someone who's been a software developer professionally for over 4 years, even though these are things that are not new to me, I love going through them with you to really remind me of getting back to basics. And then for anyone who is learning how to code, I think it's a great way to be motivated to code, kind of like your virtual coding buddy. Before we get into it though, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more tech and coding related videos. Also, I wanted to say a big thank you to Superhuman for sponsoring part of this video. Speaking of productivity and using tools such as Pomodoro method, one other tool I love to use is Superhuman. I've been using Superhuman for a while now, and honestly, it's like my emails, but on superpowers. I'll show you more about my favorite features here. Superhuman essentially used technology to rebuild your inbox from how you read, triage, and organize your inbox. This can all be done faster with Superhuman. My favorite features of it include the split inbox, which is AI power, which is pretty cool. What this does, it's called automatic triage, and what it does is it will group your emails by type. So unlike manually filing messages in your folders, you do not need to lift a finger. Automatic triage is like using folders but with zero effort. You can tackle emails in batches with minimal task switching. Okay, another thing I love about Superhuman, probably one of my favorite things, is Remind Me. Have you ever been in the position where you're out and about, an email comes in, you read the basics of it, but you know you can't reply then and there, only to fast forward a few days later, realizing you never ever responded? It's the worst feeling. With Superhuman, this is completely taken out of the equation now. So one of my favorite features with Remind Me is when you're out and about, you can actually tap which is called on desktop, and Superhuman will remind you as soon as you're back on desktop. So this is a great way if I get an email when I'm out and about and looking at my phone. All I need to do is click on desktop. Then when I open my computer, Monday morning after a weekend, I see that I need to respond to this email. I link Superhuman down in the description so you can check them out. Honestly, they have been a game changer for me. So if you are someone who doesn't enjoy email, you need to check out Superhuman because it's a great way to make you more efficient on it and spend less time in it. Okay, now that we have our email covered with Superhuman, let's start diving into building a Pomodoro app. Okay, let's just dive right in. I'm so excited to make this because, well, A, it's been forever since I've made a Pomodoro app, and B, I use a Pomodoro app every single day to work. So the fact that we're making something we can use, I just love to do, and let's just dive right into it. Okay, so I have the tutorial open here, and then on screen here, I will have my code, and let's start coding. Okay, to start for this project, we can clone an already existing starter files from GitHub repository. So let's start doing that by doing git clone. Next, once you have the repository cloned, let's cd into it. Now we need to install any packages that came with it using npm install. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to open this project up in VS Code.
Bro.
And from here, I'm going to run npm start. Okay, so now what you can see on screen on your local host as well should be kind of the skeleton, I guess you could say, of the Pomodoro app. So what came with these starter files is essentially the UI for it. So we don't have to build that out and we can focus more on the logic. What's up here? So we can see here, this is what it will look like, but if you click anything, nothing's going to actually work. The first thing we need to do is update the timer in main.js so it has the appropriate amount of minutes we want. So right now main.js is empty, but we're going to make a const timer and have that equal to the amount of time we want for the short break, the long break, the break interval, and then also to the Pomodoro time, so the 25 minutes usually. So let's start by typing in Pomodoro. Okay, now what we need to do is create a listener that listens for when any of the 3 buttons on the screen are clicked. So Pomodoro, short break, and long break. So what we're gonna do just underneath timer is go const mode buttons, and this will equal document.query selector. In which case we are going to do the ID JS mode buttons. Oops. And then we will add an event listener, which will listen for the click. And then we will also pass in something called handle mode, which is something we will create right underneath of here, function. And this handle mode will essentially handle which one is clicked, Pomodoro, short break, or long break again. If no mode, return nothing. And then let's call the switch mode method here, which will pass in the mode. Okay, this might be a little confusing right now, and that's totally fine. Just go with it. I promise you, as we continue coding, it will make more sense. And as we get a bit further, I mentioned this in another tutorial, but one of the best ways or best things you can do is comment out some lines of code or console log some lines of code and see what it does exactly, what's getting passed in. And also, when you comment out some lines of code, it breaks things, and it's a good way to understand, okay, this is for this part, or this breaks this part, and it makes it more clear when you actually break things. So my biggest tip always is break things. Okay, next we're going to add in the switch mode, because we're calling switch mode, but as you can see, we don't actually have the method made out for it. So next step we are going to do is make a function for switch mode. Now in the tutorial we are following, they have the code there. So I'm literally just gonna copy and paste it. If you have some time and really want to learn this deeply, I would suggest to write it out yourself, but I'm going to copy and paste it so we can really walk through what the code is actually doing. Okay, so as you can see here, and as it says in the tutorial, the switch mode function adds two new properties to the timer object, so to this object here. The first mode is a property which is set to the current mode, so it could be Pomodoro, short break, or long break. And then next, remaining time, here, you can see, is set on the timer. So that is an object which contains three different properties of its own: total, minutes, and seconds. And of course, total is the number of time remaining, minutes is the number of minutes for this mode, and seconds is always set to 0 to start with. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that for now. Okay, as you can see, when we're reading the code, there is another function that is being called, which is yet to be made, which is the update clock function. So once again, we are going to go ahead and make that function for update clock. The remaining time will equal the timer. The minutes will equal okay, so I'm gonna actually stop here, and then so for the update clock function, as you can see, I did pad start on both of them. And what this does is it pads them with zeros where necessary. So for example, the number always has an equivalent of 2. So if the number is 8, it'll be 0, 8. But if the number is 12, it will stay 12, 1, 2. And what this does is it keeps it consistent from singular numbers, is that a word? Singular numbers to singular numbers, so 1 to 9 or 0 to 9, and then also 2 keeps it consistent when there are numbers that have at least two numbers in them, so 10 and onwards. Okay, so let's finish this function out. Go const min. Get element by ID, and in this case, we want to get JS minutes. And then const seconds, which will be, actually let's make this const sec, keep it consistent with the tutorial. Bro. JS seconds. Okay, now let's pull up our timer again and see how it's looking. So we have update clock function done. So when we go to short break, we should see 5, and you can see it's changing colors, which is really awesome. And I'll show you where that's coming from in a sec here. Long break is 15. So you can change these colors to what they are by going into style.css, and you can see here, this is where the colors are coming from. So pick whatever color palette you want if you don't like the ones that are chosen. And this is a fun way to kind of personalize it a little bit. I'm gonna keep it as is for this tutorial, but yeah, I kind of like the colors, they're very calming. Okay, next thing we need to do is actually start the timer. So when we click on start, it will start. So now what we need to do is declare an interval variable below the timer. So let's go back to main.js, and here is timer. So right below it, let's make some space here and go let interval. And as it says here, the variable will be assigned to an instant of setInterval method in a new start timer function, which should be added just above the update clock. Okay, so let's go to update clock. Where is that? Right here. And let's add in this new function. Once again, I'm just gonna copy and paste it because it's right in the tutorial itself, and then we can walk through the code. Okay, so as we can see here, before we can actually start the timer, we need to get the exact time in the future when the timer will end, or else how does the timer know when to end? So to do that, how we do it is we retrieve the timestamp of the current moment through date.parse right here, which is the end time. And then the interval variable is set, let's see here. And then if we go down a bit, you can see the interval variable, which we declared up here, let interval. The interval variable will now be set to the remaining time, and this will help us keep track of how much time is remaining. Okay, and once again, we have made another function here, get remaining time, which we need to add in. Okay, so let's put it right above start timer. And this remaining time, so the end time is getting passed in from down here, as you can see, end time here. So now we know when this end time is passed in, what it is. So we take the difference, so the end time minus the current time, which is right up here. And that difference will come in handy when we are calculating the total. And then also as well, you can see we are calculating the minutes and seconds. Okay, I feel like we're almost there. We're doing really good. We might have to take a coffee break and come back. It's essential, I feel like, especially if you are rather new to coding and going through this tutorial, to take some breaks. So this is your sign. If you're following along, let's go take a break. Okay, we are back, we are good to go, we're ready to go, let's get back into it. So if you remember, the last thing we did was get the remaining time. And now what we need to do is we need to actually call start timer function, so when the main button is clicked, this function actually starts. So now we will add the following code above the mode buttons variable. Okay, so we're gonna take this code here for main button, if you're following along in the tutorial, and we are going to add it just above mode buttons, right here. So what this is doing, as you can see, it's getting the element by ID, the JS/button or dash button, and then adding an event listener for click. And then when the click happens, the action, the start timer function will actually be called. Okay, so we need to make a small change into the start timer method or function. So the button text changes to stop, it says. So let's do that. As you can see in the code here or in the tutorial, we need to go back in the start timer function. Here we go. And then underneath const end time, we actually need to add in a little bit more text. Okay, so we just put in some code here from main button.dataset.action and text content, and also to classlist.add, so we can add the class active. Okay, so let's see what it looks like now. Let's save our file, go here, refresh, and start. It's not starting. That's okay. We don't need to freak out. Start. Okay, so I press start, and as you can see now, the stop is a hardware button, so you can't actually click it again. It's already going. Okay, so let's go back to the tutorial. And they say here, a final thing to do in this section is to ensure the mode and remaining time properties are set on timer object on page load. So let's go back to main.js. And to do so, it says we can execute switch mode property once the DOM content is loaded or event is fired. Okay, so let's go back to here and refresh and see how it's going. So as you can see now, it is going down. We are starting our work. This is pretty exciting. We're getting pretty far on this, and this tutorial is so easy to follow, honestly, with such great explanations. So as I mentioned, I linked it down below in the description. So I really hope as we are going through that, you are following along with me, because the whole point of this is that we can learn together. Although I've been a software developer for 4 years professionally, it's still fun to make small and simple projects together and just kind of learn new things. So this isn't necessarily new to me, but it's always a great reminder of getting back to basics. Okay, the last thing we are going to do in this tutorial is stop the timer. There is other parts of it though, so I really encourage you, once we are complete, to continue on with this, but I hope this will give you a head start through the tutorial. So next it says we need to, of course, add a new function called stop timer. We have one for start, now we need one for stop. Let's add that right underneath the start timer function, which is stop timer. So in this function, as you can see, clear interval method is invoked, and that causes set interval method to be triggered in start timer. Interval, as you can see here, and then start timer right here. Now, as it says in the tutorial, we need to execute stop timer when the data action is set to stop, and modify the main button event listener as shown below. So let's go back into the main event listener, main button, yes, okay. And what we need to do is, so we have the if action is equal to start timer, but we also need to add else stop timer. And we also need to stop the timer when the mode is changed by clicking any of the 3 buttons from the countdown. So let's go back into handle mode function. And right here underneath switch mode, it says to add stop timer, which will be called. Okay, let's go. Let's see how this is working now. Drum roll, please. Okay, start. Stop. We did it! We made our Pomodoro timer. There's once again so much more you can do for this project and add on to it, but this is a great place to, I think, stop this tutorial and let you kind of take it on from here. So I'm curious to know, leave in the comments if you continue on with it and how it looks. If you end up pushing this to GitHub, link it down below. This is a really fun project, and it's something that is super useful. Okay, this was the 3rd video from this series of Code With Me, where we are virtual coding buddies and building things together. And I want to know, what are some other things you want to build together? Leave in the comments, because that's how I make these videos. If you haven't already, make sure to also check out Superhuman. Link is in the description. And once again, this has been a complete game changer for me, so I'm really excited to share it with you. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it very valuable and fun, and I will see you all soon. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.